That was his power. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
You see this is important. The whole of Knock at the Cabin, both in the movie and externally, the media, the audience reactions, boils down to this. Stick around and I'll tell you how. So Knock at the Cabin, much like the couple at the heart of the story, is out now. It had a budget of 20 million and made 21.3 worldwide in its opening 3 days, so, you know, including marketing, it should at least break even. And it's fair to say that the opinions on this movie are, like this bear, polarised. If you've not seen Knock at the Cabin yet, you can watch this video up to a point, but be warned that at this time code, that's when we enter Spoiler Town. So if you want to get off the bus before then, I'll give you a heads up at that point. Very briefly, the premise of the movie is that whilst vacationing in a remote cabin, Eric, Andrew and daughter Wen are held hostage by 4 strangers. You've got second grade teacher Leonard, gas worker Redmond, nurse Sabrina and cook Adrian. These 4 disparate individuals insist that the end of the world is coming, like tomorrow. Now they say the only way the apocalypse can be prevented is if one of the family volunteers to be killed by one of the other members. No suicides, no accidents, no holding your breath for a really long time and pretending to be dead. Nope, straight up consensual murder, or boom, apocalypse. Cue what is effectively a gripping chamber drama. You know, save the odd flashback to see if we all make it through the day. Pretty solid premise, right? Then why the middling scores? Well, typically with films that's usually down to one of 4 things. You've got the performances, the direction, the cinematography, the look and feel, the writing, and the expectations on entry. I'm going to look at each of these quickly and see if we can nail down whether this film is great or terrible. So firstly, do you know what? Everyone brings a great performance to this piece. In particular, Mr. David Michael Batista Jr. And it turns out me and M. Night have similar taste in this regard. See, after seeing Mr. Batista give a perfectly understated Gentle Giant cameo performance in Blade Runner 2049, side note, if you like that and haven't seen the short film 2048, Nowhere to Run, do check it out, okay? It fleshes out his character from Blade Runner, and it's just really great. 5-minute thing. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description. Anyway, according to M. Night, in a recent interview about Knock at the Cabin, he was really impressed with Batista's ability to be still.
I've mastered the ability of standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye.
Partly because of a game of musical statues he was planning, but also, and I quote, "There's a type of stillness where you're not doing nothing, you're doing everything, and you're still." Dave was embodying all of this philosophy in that scene. I needed someone to play this giant human being and do the stillness. So I asked Dave. To be fair, his performance is 1/4 of the beating heart of this movie. The other 75% is the family. Quick shout out to Kristen Cooey, sorry for almost certainly mispronouncing that, but as the Lily to Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge's Cameron Mitchell, she was great. In her first ever movie, holding down scenes with a man literally 20 times her size. No, all the performances are great, cannot fault them, even Ron Weasley. And you really get to see a lot of the actors acting in this, which kind of leads us on to... So, cinematographer Jarin Blaschke, sorry for the mispronunciation, shot this, and now he's best known for work on the Robert Eggers vehicles like The Lighthouse and The Northman, which has a very, distinct cinematic style, and this also has a great style to it. There's lots and lots of real close-up work, like right in people's faces, shots that are held for an uncomfortably long amount of time, and I mean that in a good way. And the camera angles, there's a bit where Wen escapes the house, and I think this is in the trailer, a bit of this, and they kind of fix the camera angle so you see Wen and you see the cabin and you don't really see anything else, and it just adds to the tension that you don't know what's around the corner because you can't see, as the audience, the stuff that Wen's seeing. You only really see Wen, and that just makes it so much more tense. And there's some really fun little things here, like how the camera follows the motion of Leonard's act. There's lots of excellent cinematography and great shots in this, and the director M. Night Shyamalan brings out those wonderful performances from the actors. So if it's not performances and if it's not the direction and cinematography, then what is it? Some of the writing is fantastic in this. The film does show don't tell really well. A particular scene that embodies this is a flashback to Andrew and Eric sitting at a table across from two very awkward looking boomers. Nothing is really said. The male boomer just looks grumpy, gets up and leaves, and the woman quickly follows. Now, you can tell from the staging, the costumes, the smiles, the frowns, that these are the parents of one of these men being told that their son is gay and in a relationship, and they're not happy with it. Even after a fact, they don't spell it out. Andrew just says they drove 8 hours to stay for 45 minutes. And you really feel the awkward tension, the unacceptance, which helps you empathise with these characters more, and it's really important to later on in the story. There was no exposition, there was barely any dialogue, it was fantastic. That kind of storytelling I have a lot of time for. And whilst there's plenty of examples of show don't tell, sadly there's also a lot of tell don't show. Or not even that, it's really more don't tell or show. Because, man, is this story vague. At the beginning, it's fine to be in the dark and not really know what's going on, and a bit like the hostages, you're just like, what? This doesn't make sense, and you just got little snippets of information. That's fine. When you're like that at the end of the film, something's missing, okay? And it's not like, ooh, it's ambiguous. I don't need it all spelt out in crayon. I would just like there to be something. I can write a film where there's no plot, and there's no story, and there's no information. That's easy, okay? You got to put something in there. Yeah, all we know is that these 4 hostage takers, who get referred to as the Four Horsemen, which is hilarious, and I will get back to that later, had similar visions that brought them here. None of them know each other, and they didn't know each other beforehand, and, it's all a bit mysterious, and woo. And that's it, that's all you know. Now, I'm going to get into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen it and you want to go in fresh, know that. The performances are great, the direction's great, the cinematography is great, a lot of the storytelling is really good, some bits could be fleshed out. Now, we're going to get into spoiler territory. This is based on a book called Cabin at the End of the World, and they made some changes from the book, which were definitely for the better. In the book, there's a struggle with a gun, and then Wen gets shot, and the horsemen say, well, that doesn't count because it was an accident. One of you still has to kill the other one, and the 2 guys are like, nah, I'm all right. And they just leave, and the apocalypse still happens. The end. In the film, Eric gets convinced about the apocalypse happening and they need to sacrifice one of themselves. And so he says, no, kill me. And so Andrew kills him at the last minute to end the apocalypse, just as things are getting quite apocalyptic. It dies down and him and Wen drive off. You're like, okay, fine, I guess, but there's still so many unanswered questions. I mean, the brevity of this piece means that we kind of rush straight there. It's like, hey guys, there's an apocalypse. Really? Yep. Okay, let's stop it. Okay, cool. Done. End. And the thing is, there are hints to way more interesting story ideas and little twists and turns that just don't get explored. Rupert Grint's character, Redmond, it turns out his name is actually O'Bannon. Why is he using a fake name? Dunno. Is there an interesting plot point for it? Maybe, but we never find out. It also turns out that he actually is the only one that had a previous connection to the couple because he attacked Andrew in a bar some years earlier, which doesn't really have any relation or bearing on anything, other than it means that Andrew now carries a gun, which is good because it means there's a gun at the cabin, so great. Ooh. They hint that, maybe there's some other connection there. There's not, okay? There's just not. They show a lot of the apocalyptic events that are happening via the TV, and there's a hint that maybe this is all pre-recorded and not actually happening, and there's a trick in some way. Is that the case? No. Is that something that could get the Horsemen to doubt their calling? Well, maybe for about a second, but no, not really. And Four Horsemen, I said we'd get back to them, they get referred to as the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by being called Malice, Nurture, Healing, and Guidance.
Say what?
The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It was at that point I burst out laughing, because that's ridiculous. I do not know anywhere in the world where that would be the reference to make. I'm pretty sure the universally accepted Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are war, famine, pestilence, and I can't remember the last one, like Wolverine or something. There's also some really interesting things hinted at the start about homophobia, about whether or not they're being targeted because they're a same-sex couple, and all of that stuff. And again, interesting. Does it go anywhere? No. Even if you go route one, go, right, this is genuinely a kind of spooky spiritual thing. Who's behind it? Who's pulling the strings? Dunno. Turns out, yeah, that is the case, that this is a real thing. But do we get any more info on that? No. Nah, it'd be way too tricky to write anything there. Also, don't get me started on the trailer, which literally shows every frame of the potential spectre that exists in this movie. Every single frame of it is in the trailer. This scene here, these frames, that is everything you see of the spooky bad behind it all. It's in the trailer. That's all you see in the film. It also, trailer... this is what, just don't watch trailers ever. It shows Eric's conversion to the Horseman's way of thinking in the trailer. So at the start, when they're all like, no, we're not going to kill each other, you know that there's a point at which Eric goes, no, actually, maybe we should kill each other. It turns out these people are right. The apocalypse is happening. One of the family needs to kill another member to end the apocalypse. That's just it. Why? Don't know. Doesn't matter. There's no twist, which is fine. I don't need a twist. People shouldn't go into M. Night Shyamalan movies thinking there's going to be a twist. But when Mr. M. Night is on Graham Norton asking people not to give away the ending...
I was doing interviews for the new movie, Knock at the Cabin, and they were saying,
when can we talk about the ending of this movie?
I was like, never.
Then you're kind of implying, Shyamalan, that there's something clever going to happen, which is not true. And this leads us on to... To paraphrase a problematic performer, the greatest trick M. Night Shyamalan ever pulled was convincing the world he could do a twist. Weirdly, he's known as the twist guy. But let's look at a few of these so-called twists. Okay, so obviously, Knock at the Cabin. Is there an apocalypse? Yes. Yes, there is. Unbreakable. Is he? Yes. Yes, he is. Split. Oh, he claims that there's another personality called the Beast that can climb up walls and is bulletproof and stuff. And yeah, that's true. Signs. Oh, are there aliens? Yeah, there are. Sixth Sense, you know, the most famous twist of twisty things. Oh, look, at the start, it looks like he's gonna die. Oh, and this guy speaks to dead people. Oh, yeah, guess what? The Village was good. So all these so-called twists are not twists. They are untwists. They are straight lines. He is not the master twister. He is the master straightener, Mr. Straight. At the start, you're at point A and there's a big sign saying, hey, guess what? We're going to point B pretty soon. And you know what? You end up at point B pretty quickly. But for better or worse, people go into these films expecting there to be a twist. I don't know why he doesn't do them, but people think he does. And he knows that, and he plays on that, and he needs to stop. Just stop it. Knock at the Cabin is a good premise with excellent performances, great cinematography, good direction, and a bad ending. It's like having a beautiful three-course meal, and the starter and the main are incredible, and then dessert is a slap in the face. And like the slap, the fact that the ending is mercifully brief is its only saving grace. There were so many interesting ways the third act could have developed, but it just didn't. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you come out of the cinema, which is a real shame. The film has got a lot of great features, so do go and watch it. But be aware that Mr. M. Night Shyamalan is a fraudster, a hoodwinker, the great straightener. Let it be known, Mr. Knight, I'm on to you.